Start with.
I think, well, as our song showed, push pull legs is a it's a good way to start. So push muscles, that's your chest, shoulders, and triceps, and then your pull muscles are your lats and your biceps. You can also include quads and push, glutes and push, calves and push, and you can involve hamstrings and your pull as well. And well, if you're just doing full body push pull. If you want to just do push pull legs, then yeah, you would just do your legs one day and then back and bis, and then chest, shoulder, tris. Um, there's another split that I didn't mention. I guess it's chest and tris, back and bis, legs and shoulders. That's another one that a lot of people often do.
Mm.
That's good as well.
There's also
And yeah,
the unilateral versus bilateral split, where they do it's kind of a more complex version of kind of combining splits, where they do let's say 2 of the days they do all compound movements, and then another 2 of the days they do all concentrated movements, to where uh, the sides are independent from each other. Like instead of two hands holding the same bar, which is bilateral, there'd be one hand on each object, and each one is independent. So like one day doing the bench
unilateral.
press, and then the next day doing dumbbell press, and focusing on different that's kind of like a couple steps up, and that's probably kind of a level that me and you do. But when we're first
Mhm.
getting started, that's not really something people should be worrying about. But if they ever do get bored, or they're more advanced than listening, and you are hearing all these splits, and you maybe have worked through all of these, try throwing in something a little more depth oriented, where you're focusing on the compound versus the concentrated split, or the bilateral versus the lateral split, or sorry, unilateral.
Yeah, and it's even good to split them up because your compounds take so much energy
Yeah.
and a lot of focus because you want to make sure that your form is correct big time so that you're executing that movement correctly. And then, yeah, so like the accessories or like the lighter days where you're doing unilateral work, that is much better for concentrating on making sure that you're hitting that muscle individually and still feeling. You might not go as heavy, obviously, because with compounds you can go way heavier. You can track that weight a lot easier and progressively overload. With dumbbells, you're going up by 5-10 pounds each time. So yeah,
So
yeah.
let's actually start. Let's start with if you're okay with it. Let's start with the full body, and talk about variations of different full body workouts, and how many days a week it's appropriate, and things like that. The first full body that I start people with, and I usually start people that are lower on the days. Like let's say somebody hires me for one day a week, or 2 to even 3 days a week. I usually start them with full body, so that we can get a well-rounded stimulation going throughout their entire body, and especially because if they aren't working out outside of our sessions, um, we start with working on the squat. I Especially in like a 1 hour session, split it up into 15 minutes, and 15 minutes per exercise. Do 4 different exercises, and whether they got it down or not, by the end of that 15 minutes, we roll over to the next one, just to make sure that we're working on the entire body instead of fixating on one body group, one grouping for the entire day, and really just like kind of throwing the rest out. Especially, and let's talk about the reasoning behind it too. Um, but with the full body, I would start with squats, and then move over to bench press, and then row, and then after that, weighted sit up. Making sure that we leave the core for the end of the day, so that it doesn't get broken down, especially before the squats, or before any of the core bracing activities before that. So once all the isometric use of the core is over, then we can do dynamic use with the core, and then finish out the day right there. So basically, going from the feet, and then going up to the chest, going to the back, and then back down to the core. And I kind of use that system to train my new clients, unless they're 5 days a week or 4 days a week. That's usually where I start if they're trying to just do general health, lose weight, gain muscle, or even strength build. And if, let's say, they're strength building and they're used to a 3 by 15 or a 4 by 20, or they come in. I had a new prospect the other day, and he's Nathan's new client, and he came in and he says he does 300 push-ups a day. He's been doing that for 3 months, and I was like, okay, Well, stop doing that.
That is a lot.
That is a lot. And I can guarantee you, if he's doing 300 push-ups a day, it's military push-ups. It's these right here.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like going to a rave just the entire time. And yeah, for those of you that aren't watching the podcast and listening, I basically put my hands in front of me and brought them up and down 2 inches at a time. Just that's the push-ups right there. And you see a lot of those on TV, or you see people that on Facebook where they're like, I can do 1 million push-ups, and then they just start doing push-ups, and then you see the random jackass in the comments saying, I didn't see one push-up. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
he's right. So we usually start with that, and then we move over to the calisthenic versions of all of that. So let's say they're starting to grasp the idea of the squat, of the bench press, of the row, and of the weighted sit up, which are pretty easy to grasp on some of them, and then squat takes longer than others. But over a period of a month, that is a good place to start. But to throw in a little bit more without overloading them, I bring in the calisthenic version of each one of those. So we do a perfect push up, perfect posture, which is a lot harder to do than a normal push up. Basically, making sure your hips never touch the ground, getting into a deadlift sort of back structure, and putting your thumbs against the sides of your chest the entire time with a 45-degree angle, with the humerus coming off your shoulder, and basically making sure that it's a strict push up and then a shoulder press on top of that at the top, and then when they get to the bottom, a shoulder
Retraction.
retraction, yeah, or retraction.
Because you're going
You
backwards
know
or
what I'm saying. Yes,
protraction,
yeah,
retraction.
and then making sure that they squeeze the back, and so basically they're adding a shoulder mobility exercise to the push up. And I kind of sneak that in there without sounding too sciencey in the very beginning, which can scare them off. Um, and then we go to like a TRX row or a hanging bar row, and just basically the calisthenic versions of that. And then let's say that next month they got all that down, and they want to move on to something more. If they don't and they want to repeat, I always ask. I was like, hey, so we can move on, or if you have some doubt about this and you want to keep doing it for another month, especially because you're new, is actually probably going to be beneficial. And so we may stay there. But if they do want to move on, then we move to deadlift, um, incline bench press, maybe some dips, and pull ups, and hanging leg lift. But not the hanging leg lift where it's just hip flexors. It's I call them fetal position hanging leg lifts, where they literally curl their butt up and they get into like a curled motion where they're touching their knees to their elbows,
Mm-hmm.
and they're actually doing a crunch while they're hanging and lifting everything. And so we kind of flip flop between those until they get a good grasp of a lot of things. That's a lot of stuff to throw at them. And it basically is a pre-planning of mine for about the first 3 months. And that's basically the format. If unless they're a special case or their goals defer from that. But that's a pretty if you listening have never worked out before, and I just gave you a golden plan right there to start at. Squat, bench press, row, sit up, weighted sit up, not trying to do 60 million sit ups, but put 5 pounds on a pulley and try to pull it up as you sit up, and do that about 12 times. Do a 3 by 12, and that's a good place to start. If you get bored of that, go for the other ones: deadlift, fetal position hanging leg lift, incline bench press, and pull up. And and obviously a lot of people can't do pull ups when they're first starting, but a banded pull up or even a foot on a stool or a platform, 1 foot and then 1 foot hanging off, doing that while you do a pull up. That's a great, I call those pseudo pull ups. That's a great way to start your pull up process. Even if you weigh 300 pounds, if you can stand up, you can do those, even with both feet on the stool. Because after you do 12, your feet are going to get tired, your legs are going to get tired, and your upper body does take over, and you are technically doing pull ups. You're just being assisted by your feet. That's really it.
Yeah, and
So
as long as they can focus on the eccentric movement, like coming down on a pull up
exactly.
and try to
Yes.
prevent themselves from just falling and pulling themselves and then like
Yeah.
just trying to hold on, they're going to naturally go down because
Hmm.
it's hard to hold up. But people don't understand that you could do about 40 to 50% more weight on the way down than you can on the way up. So as long as you're controlling your way down, you're going to get better at pull ups.
And on the way up, I tell them to try to visualize turning off their legs. So basically, trying to use their legs as least as possible. And when you do that, everything engages, and you actually do use the same muscles that a pull-up uses because your skeleton's doing a pull-up. You just weigh less because your feet are helping you out. But trying to learn that detachment and not just standing up, that takes a little bit of process. But once you get it down, if you're not doing pull-ups because you can't, quotation marks, can't do pull-ups, that's a very good place to start so that you one day can do pull-ups. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think there was two things that I was trying to make a note of. The first thing is on the hanging leg raises. You're doing it the right way, with how you talked about, because the only way to do a real hanging leg raise is to bring the top of your pelvis or like below your belly button
Yeah.
all the way up to your uh, lower chest,
Hmm.
because you have to bring the insertion point closer to the origin point, and or vice versa. If you're going to do a contraction, lifting your legs is working your hip flexors and
Right.
working your quads. Bringing the pelvis up and tucking and trying to touch your knees to your elbows and getting into that fetal position is bringing the very top or of your pelvis or bottom of your abs to the top of your abs, and that's the only way you're going to contract. The second thing is it's great to do a full body. It's different for whoever I'm training, because if it's a younger client, sometimes I'll do like 15, because I've got about 30 to 45-minute sessions depending on who it is.
Hmm.
I'll do like mostly upper and then mostly lower, because they want to focus on mostly upper body anyway, and they don't really care for legs. So then we do legs at the end. If it's an older client, what I'll do is I might do major muscles like your chest and back, like your chest, whatever, incline or flat, and then vertical and horizontal pulls, and then I'll go to like leg press and calf raises, and then I'll go to arms, shoulders, biceps, tries, and then I'll go to leg extensions like curls, because going from an upper to lower is helping with blood flow and helping with their heart. So like pulling the blood into the upper body, and then doing legs, pulling POOLING to the legs, and then pulling it back up to the upper body, and then pulling it back up to the legs to help with circulation. It helps a lot with that. So I'll do that with the older clients to make sure that they're getting better blood flow. So yeah, that's a good. Even if they do 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and they don't work out any other time during the week, I'll do.
So
Uh,
you're transitioning into so before what I was talking about, this is for the audience, was a full body split. And are you transitioning into a upper lower split? Is that
nope, that's a full body in one day.
oh, so this is all in one day. Gotcha.
In one day.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay,
that
okay.
for like 30 to 45 minutes, they'll do, for a little bit of time, they'll do like maybe 10, 15 minutes, they'll do like chest and back, and then, or like 2 sets of incline chest rows and pull-ups, and then I'll have them go to the leg press and then calves for about 2 sets, and then I'll go to shoulders 2 sets, but cycle through like shoulder by try and then shoulder by try, and then go back to leg extensions and like curls, all in one setting, all in one session, I should say, to help with circulation, because then that, like I said, pulls the blood to the top, pulls the blood to the bottom, pulls it back up to the top, pulls it back to the bottom, so their heart's really working, and it's really
Yeah.
helping with the blood flow.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
Sorry for the misunderstanding, by the way. I thought that you were saying that you were doing 30 to 45-minute sessions and then breaking up the upper lower between the different days. So that was my bad. Audience, don't
Yeah,
get
no,
confused.
no, yeah, you're good. Yeah, if they only have like 3 days a week and they don't work out other than when they're working out with me, I'll do a full body with them sometimes, because that's what they want, and that's how I'll program it that day, is to do like a little bit of upper, a little bit of lower, back up to upper, a little bit of lower, just in one session. So they're getting a good
If Felix
blood
ends
flow.
up editing this, Felix, make me look cool. Make them forget I said any of that. Cut all that out.
Yeah, I probably worded it. I could have worded it better. So
No, that was my fault. That is two very good examples of full body. I like what you said about I like the order of the way that you did it, especially for the basically extra heart pumping, blood pooling, and calling for an enhancement in cardiovascular and vasculatory basically systems because that's gonna force the blood to have to pool in different parts of the body, and vasodilation is gonna have to happen. The heart's gonna have to get bigger, and it basically just focuses on an extra category, which is the vascular system, more defined. By the way, side note for everybody, lifting weights always enhances your heart, your veins, your lungs. Um, but done the way that he just said, it more so will help with blood flow and heart strength.
Mhm.
So, what would be a good example for your split? So, by the way, for the audience that doesn't know what splits are, not for a split, I'm sorry, upper lower split. For the audience that doesn't know what splits are, we're talking about splitting up the body in workouts. So, the way that we work out in 1 week, so that's what a split is. It splits up the body parts within a week so that we're making sure through programming that we're getting optimal muscle gain. And the first one that we talked about was a full body split. So basically, not splitting up anything. I know we just said splitting up, but not splitting up anything and working out the full body in 1 day and sprinkling that. Would you say between 2 to 3, maybe even 4, depending on their taxation limit, a week?
If they're going to be doing 4 days a week, sometimes I'll do an upper day, lower day, upper day,
Yeah.
lower day, just to kind of get more in depth for each muscle group.
If they do really like the full body and they insist, I make one of their days a trigger day, to where it's basically they work out 3 days a week hard, and then their fourth day is more about mobility. It's still full body, but it's more about mobility and triggering with bands, so that they're doing some of the blood pooling in the muscles that need reviving or need not reviving, but
Stimulation.
not recovery. There we
Recovery.
go.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
need recovery by shoving more blood into those muscles since they're broken up and they're building muscle. It's giving more ingredients faster. By let's say I want to trigger my traps. Let's say for the last 5 days, I've been working my not 5 days, but I worked out 3 times full body for all the way through the week, and then Saturday, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna grab a band and I'm gonna pull apart and really stimulate my traps. I'm gonna do about 20 of them, and I feel the heat happening in my traps, but I'm not trying to tear any more muscle. I'm just trying to blood pool, and
Yeah, self-swelling kind of
yeah,
deal.
that's what I call a trigger session, and that's if they are gung ho about working out 7 days a week, I'll put about 2 of those in there for them.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
if someone's insistent on 4 days a week and doing full body, I'll do a push full body, pull full body, push full body, pull full body. So that way they're not interfering still, but you're still getting a good full body, and you can still really focus on individual muscles. Like, you would have, so for a push full body, you could do chest, shoulders, tris, quads, calves. And then on the pull, you could do vertical pull, biceps, and let's see, hamstrings and forearms. And then on the second push day, you could do again incline chest instead of flat. You could do more front or lateral raises, or some more accessory type movements for the. And then you could do same thing for the triceps, and then you can still work quads, but then maybe you could do glutes instead of calves. And then for pull, you could do vertical pull, or sorry, horizontal pull this time, traps and biceps, and maybe like instead of hamstrings, you could probably do like the adductor, abductor, maybe a little bit of um, different types of movements for the legs and hips instead. So that's what I'll usually do if they want to do 4 days a week and a full body. So that way they're not really blowing every single muscle all 4 days a week.
Right. I actually kind of want to stay on the full body topic and maybe even make that the main topic of today, and then we can
Sure.
make next session or not next session, but next podcast about the upper lower split, and
Sure.
kind of just for the next 3 podcasts, kind of make kind of lay out some of the land for different types of splits, because there's a lot you can talk about within each split because there's a lot of programming science and a lot of just respective knowledge that goes into planning for, a perfect optimal workout. I'd like to talk about the science of how muscle is built and the reasoning we have for, because some things that are common knowledge to us, I've learned, is not common knowledge, and that's why we're paid so much.
Right.
And so, for the audience, if you're, and correct me if you have insight that conflicts with this. If you're trying to build muscle, it takes about 3 days for the muscle to be built. Let's say that you stimulate, meaning you work out. Let's be very specific, the right bicep. And this is for the audience that isn't so close to the knowledge as we are. Let's say for the right bicep, we do a bicep curl, we do 3 by 12, and it's nice and hot, and it is all the muscle fiber has been torn and micro torn, so it's not actually tearing, but it's microfiber tear, and the repair comes in, and basically the CNS, the central nervous system, says, "Hey, that was a stress. Let's make it not so stressful. It wasn't so stressful that it was a pain signal, but it's a muscle building signal. So next time we do that same action, let's be a little bit stronger so it's not so much of a stress." That's the pseudo and also very scientific part of the muscle building process is the CNS conversation that happens with you and your body and the environment. And so making that a routinely thing, tells your body, hey, I need strength in my right bicep because he keeps on going over there, lifting that crap. And it's stressed me out, man. And so your body reacts by saying, okay, we obviously need more strength because we're in a routine, we're in an environment that does require a higher strength caliber than we have right now. So take the protein that he ate, get some of the carbs for the energy, and let's create some more muscle. And over the next 3 days, repair happens. That means over the next 3 days, a couple things happen. One, your metabolism shoots up a little bit, around, I would say, 300 calories extra per day for creating more muscle. That means that a section, whether it's 300 calories exactly, it varies per person, and it depends on how much you worked out. If you only worked out your right bicep, definitely not 300. If you worked out your entire body, possibly more. But every single day for the next 3 days, your metabolism is higher than it normally would be already without even doing anything else. Even if you're still just going to Walmart, going to church, going to school, and not working out, you're still burning more than you would have before. That's one of the reasons why muscle building is one of the best investment calorie burners rather than manually running every single day. If you work out and build muscle, you're already skyrocketing your metabolism because of the extra calorie burn that's passively happening for the next 3 days after your workout. Now, if you were during that 3 days of muscle building, you go and say, hey, I want to work out my right bicep again on either the day after or the second day after, you're going to tear muscle fiber that is trying to heal and add on. And the result will be overtraining. And the result will be that you actually will stop muscle building and you might actually reverse it. You might lose some muscle, and the CNS will see it as a pain signal, as a, hey, we're not prepared for this. Obviously, it's happening more frequent than we can handle. So instead, we need to create blockers that prevent him from doing this action again, like a strain, like a pseudo pain that happens because your muscle tightens up because it doesn't want to actually do anything anymore because you overused it. All these bad things. You could actually get flu symptoms from overtraining. And so basically, the reason why we're saying that 2 to 3 days a week for full body training is enough. I know out there, and I've been told this by prospects that come in, they're like, I know, and they say it like it's common knowledge. They're like, I know I should be working out 5 to 6 days a week. I'm like, hold the horses there. Like that, you don't have to be working out 5 to 6 days a week to get a good physique. You can work out 2 to 3 days a week as long as it's correct. If it's a correct, well thought out program and you're eating right, you can work out 2 to 3 days a week, more towards the 3 days side, and get a great physique as long as you're giving your body enough time to create the muscle after you've put in the blueprint order, which is the workout, and feeding it the materials it needs. and recovering for those 2 days after the day that you worked out, then you're fine. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't work out back to back and that should never happen, but you shouldn't work out the same muscle the same way back to back. That shouldn't happen because that's going to interrupt the muscle building that's happening in that right bicep. If I work out my right bicep Monday, I can work out my left bicep Tuesday. And so that's kind of where I'm leading with all this is that with the full body split programming, 2 to 3 days a week is enough. And that's why when we say 4 days a week, that's the causation for the other split, lower upper, because we can't work out full body 4 days a week because there's not enough days in the week to recover. We can't space them out enough to recover. What's your thoughts on that, Paul?
Yeah, so I'm gonna make things a little easy to understand for everybody who feels like
I
it's hard to
apologize if I was
comprehend this.
confusing.
No, 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 it wasn't. I mean, I followed you, and it made me think of something as well. So with overtraining, you don't want to overtrain, but overreaching, you slightly want to overreach because overreaching, and I'll get to in a second, or I might as well explain it now. You have a certain pain threshold, and your Golgi tendon organ, your GTO, is responsible for telling your nervous system, "Hey, we've reached our pain threshold. We need to stop. We need to shut down the system to make it to give them a break." If you push your pain threshold by overreaching a little bit, you will become stronger because once you've pushed your pain threshold to adapt to more, you can eventually lift more, get stronger, and do more. Um, that's overreaching versus overtraining. Now, um, when it comes to building muscle, think of it like this. Everyone's heard of the three little pigs, right?
Yes.
All right, hear me out. And a untrained individual is kind of like a house of hay. All right. The big bad wolf is your training regiment. You train, you blow down that house. The pigs is your body trying to recover and build the next house, which is made of sticks, a little bit stronger. And it took them maybe 3 days to rebuild into a house of sticks. When you train, the big bad wolf comes and blows that house down a little bit more. You recover, which is the 3 more days that the pigs build a brick house. And each time that you train, the house or your body gets way stronger to the point where when you work out, that house isn't really doing anything because now you've reached your body has adapted so much. Now you've got to start changing a lot of things up and now begin overreaching. And then that's where that wolf is starting to really chisel out or take a sledgehammer and making big dents to the house. And then the house has to become stronger and now get made of cement that's a little bit stronger than bricks or steel, I should say, which is a little bit stronger than those bricks.
I was like, I'm just gonna trust you on that one. I have no idea. Bricks and cement. I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll say reinforced concrete. So instead of just bricks and mortar, now you have steel beams inside of the concrete, and then eventually you just have a house made of steel. So you have to build or tear yourself down just a little bit to build up even stronger, and you've got to push your GTO or your Golgi tendon organ, or you've got to push that pain threshold. So you have to work out to a burn. And I mean, this is a great way to think of it is once you start to feel the burn, start counting your reps. Okay. Get it on a weight. Those first few reps where you don't really feel a burn, that's a warm up rep. That's a warm up rep. You're starting to feel a burn. All right. That's one. Two, start pushing that pain threshold, overreach a little bit until you feel to the point where there's no more ATP left. So ATP is the chemical reaction that basically contracts, is responsible for getting the myosin and actin to contract and expand and all that stuff, or mostly contract. And you've got to tear down the muscle just to get a little bit stronger. That's the easiest way to kind of to talk
I
about it.
like I like that analogy. The three little pigs. That's it's kind of funny,
Yeah.
and it sounds pretty good. And I totally agree with you. That was a great analogy. I'm impressed.